in touch here. Today I have with me Melinda Neff, and she has such an interesting story, and I can't wait for her to share it. So Melinda, she was born with hearing loss, hard of hearing, grew up hard of hearing, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it
So,
was mild, moderate.
okay, tell us a little bit about growing up and what that was like. And if you might
Well,
notice, we both have wet hair. We're dyeing our hair from the shower today.
uh, I, when I was born, my mom knew something wasn't right when my uncle and my dad used to wrestle around and I sleep right through it. So she knew that, wow, this is too good to be a perfect baby. And as growing up, she noticed some things, language, grammar, all that was not coming like it should. And then when you're about 3 years old and it was hot summer day in middle of the day before supper, when my mom knew something wasn't right, when she goes, "We want ice cream," and I didn't run her over because I didn't hear her. Because who pass up ice cream before supper? She figures something's not right. So took me in. They used to say, "Oh, you're just overprotective, mom. Nothing wrong with your child." But back in the day, is you'll know, they used to face you while they say the words or push the button while you learn how to do that. It wasn't until I started kindergarten, my speech pathologist knows that mom was right. There is something wrong. She referred me to Children's Hospital in Portland, where the PhD audiologist, who's top of his field there, put me in this room where he could see me through the window, but I couldn't see him, and that's how they caught it. And then they was able to get the more definite diagnosis that I have a sensory neural loss in both ears, mild, moderate, and then just going through school. I was in the mainstream because the school district told my mom either they need to send me to deaf school, or she have to drive an hour every day one way to Portland to the school for special ed, or go through the mainstream because we live in a rural area in Oregon. So I went through the mainstream, and it was a struggle. Teachers was kind of holding me back because they weren't sure. Because, in the 80s, nobody knew a lot about dealing with hard of hearing or deafness for children in the school system. So my mom taught me to be advocate for myself, and I stood up to a lot of them and say, "Hey, no, I'm capable of doing this. This is what I need." And it's been a battle, but I worked hard. I had a good speech pathologist, as well as my mom was I call it on my six, pushing me and guiding me, and like, yeah, don't take the second, you know, back seat to anything. So I worked really hard to get to where I graduated with a diploma, with honorable mention, went to college, trying to figure out what I want to do, which, nobody knows what they want to be when they grow up. I'm almost 50 and I'm finally figuring it out.
I'm
But,
still
I've
figuring it
worked.
out.
Yeah. But, I've done CNA jobs. I drove semi trucks, and it just took me a while, but I'm finally getting my niche where I want to be. And then I just been diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, but I got some years left to do what I want to do, and before that becomes an issue, but I'm also got a plan B for when that is an issue. I have a backup. I always think ahead.
And I think it's your optimism, your attitude that is carrying you. And you have the attitude of nothing's gonna stop me. You're not letting being hard of hearing or the IP stop you from anything. So tell us what you're planning to do now. Now I know you are a volunteer firefighter.
Yep, I'm assistant firefighter in the volunteer fire department. I'm currently an EMT for the ambulance, and I start next week in paramedic training, which this afternoon I have orientation in Bismarck, but we're okay on time. But I've been like this week too, I've been driving the bus for the kids athletic practice, and I'm just keep working on pushing through, doing things, and because I don't see myself disabled, I see myself differently able.
I love
Maybe
that.
different, but I could still do the same thing as everybody else, just a little differently. I love where we live here in North Dakota, rural community. They are amazed by me. They help, they support, my cheer squad. It's like, hey, I'm proud of you. And I only known these people for 2 years since we moved here, and they're proud of me for the accomplishment that I've done and the hurdles that I've gone through to get to where I am. And a friend of ours, granddaughter's mild hearing loss, and they kind of say, hey, you can too, because look at here. Here's a good
I love
example.
it.
Now she's
Because
going cheerleading.
I think it's
So
breath of fresh air. Um, because so many times we hear the negative part of it, oh, you're deaf, oh, you're hard of hearing, you can't do this, 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 this. But then we meet people like you who are out there doing it. Oh, I am, hard of hearing, and oh, I happen to have vision loss too, but here's what I'm doing this, 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 this. And it's great. And we need that. You have passion. This might sound passion. You have passion in you. So when you think of that word passion, what does it mean to you and how do you define it?
to me is when you care deeply about something that you want to do, that passion, that drive. And when it's like I was sitting there toying, do I want to go back to school and become a paramedic? Always have done, want to do it in the past, never did, never did. But it was like something told me to, kind of open that door and saying, you need to do this. And that passion, because you're deep down in your heart that you want to do something, even though it's volunteer, but we need people to care for people in the community. And that passion, what drove me, that drive, that wanting something, drove me to go ahead and do it. And then when I went for the interview for the EMT, the gal in charge, her cousin, I guess be her second cousin, lived just south of us. And his folks is just from our next door neighbor. So she grew up knowing my husband's family. And then it was like, oh, hey. And I said, first thing I said to her, how would this affect me doing that job with a hard of hearing? And she said, I hear fine. And yet when you're in the back of the ambulance moving with all the chaotic radio and everything and the engine road noise and all that, she goes, and I'm perfect hearing. I can't hear anything anyways. So it's not going to
So,
affect anything. And then like having the echo stethoscope is now Bluetooth to my phone, to my hearing aids, because technology kind of finally caught up to where it allow us to do our job and do it just the same as everybody else. That I actually got to hear first time breath sounds with a stethoscope. And when I did my clinical, I heard a pneumonia breath sounds, which is really hard to hear, even if you have good hearing. You have to really focus. Well, with that, it allowed me to hear it and to do my job. It also had the EKG on it, so I can also watch the heart monitor as well. I'm listening for signs like heart murmurs or whatever. So technology finally caught up to where it allows us to be equals to everybody else and do our job. And
it's amazing.
that gives you more passion, because then it's like, yes, if you're not having that struggle anymore. So it gives you that drive even more. It's like, yes, yes, I can do this.
Yeah.
And when you have that
You
passion,
probably
it
pay.
allows you to be successful.
Say that again. Say that again.
When you have that passion, it allows you to be successful.
That is so true. So true. And that is an example of a what we call that part of being game, that ability to be so in tune to what you're doing that you can pick up that extra stuff that somebody else may overlook. So that's actually
I
a
have
game. Yeah.
I have the nose of a bloodhound. So when they're fire crews like, can you smell what, trying to distinguish what caused a fire? And I'm the one they go to because I can smell things that most people, because your other senses in heighten when you're at one or two, your senses diminish, the others in heighten. And that's not a bad thing, because when I go into a structure fire, I can feel my way around and do better than most. And I've usually taught firefighters kind of a little bit of a science, it's our own version, but to when we're close together, when we're like this in the fire, because that's about close you can see each other, kind of little fingers of letting us know what's going on and communicate, because you can't hear in that roaring fire. And
I thought of that.
they and when you can't see, even it's very blinding going in. For me, it's not an issue because
You've been doing it
I can
for a
feel my
long
way
time.
through better than some of them.
Now, speaking of fires, was there any fire that stands out in your mind? A memorable event?
Oh, probably, and it wasn't one as I was a firefighter, but I was a caregiver for foster home for the developmental disability mental health, and we had forest fire and we had to evacuate them, and trying to get by dis basically developmental disability, calm them down the anxiety level, oh my, and behaviors, and trying to get them evacuated and keep them calm as can be, and having the fires that get pretty close. And I just know further away we camp them instead of like the nearest town and for evacuees. I take them further away and make a fun trip, trying to change it to where we have less behaviors and issues. And that was a little bit of a challenge.
What do you do when you encounter people who don't believe in you, or who say that you really shouldn't be doing what you're doing? Do you encounter people like that?
All the time. Well, it's like when on my senior year in high school, I was told that they had an outfit come in to help work a little more with hearing loss to prepare for the world. And they said, all you can do is just flip burgers at McDonald's. And I looked at her and I said, I guarantee you I ain't going to be flipping no burgers at McDonald's, because I am capable of doing things equal, if not better, than you. And I said that to her. And some of them always thought I had an attitude, because I have an attitude of I can, and just as anybody with or without any disability have where it's like, okay, this is not for me. This is about as far as I can go. We all have that. It's not anybody's job to tell me what I can and can't do. It is my job to know what I can and can't do. And I've dealt with people like that all the time. And I just basically tell them, no, I can do just the same as everybody else, if not better. Just like my husband, he's over 30-year machining welder. I can't even do what he does. He makes it look so easy, but that's where his is. And I'm not going to tell him he can't, because he can. And he always told me that practice and learning, I can just as well be as good as him too. It's what you want. And that's one thing he always says, it's what you want. And if nobody business what they say, he, excuse me, he's been my supporter that, yeah, you can. And he tells people too that, oh no, she can. Hey, he goes, hey, she's smarter and better than me. He goes, doing this paramedic. He goes, I can't even. Basic first aid is about all he could do. He'll grab my jump bag, he'll grab my gear, supplies, whatever I ask for. But that's about all he can want to do, because he don't think he can do it just as good as I can. But then he said, that's my wheelhouse. And nobody has the right to tell me that I can't.
Where does that confidence come from? Did you have a mentor or somebody that helped you recognize your confidence?
I think I always go back. Her name is Karen Conaway, and she was my speech pathologist. And she kind of helped educated me and my family from kindergarten up. And and the confidence she always gave me, because I worked really hard. And my file was this thick. And she told me one time that she used to take my file to her patients or clients, whatever you call it, to that have hard of hearing and struggles, and they say, I can't. She'll pull that file and set it down, and she'll say, she can. She has a hearing loss, and she can. If she can, so can you. And she tells me that, and she's always said that, yes, you can. And I think that's where that confidence, and then she taught my family, yes, she can. And they kind of help carry that through. And I always have to say, she's my mentor. I wish I can see her again to say, hey, look at me now. Just your drive, your push. Yeah.
I think it's so important to have somebody who also believes in you. They help reinforce that belief, because there's so many other people out there who will say, no, you can't. And like you said, you have to have that desire within you. You have to want something so bad, and want to do it and practice like your husband says, and then you can.
Mm-hmm.
To wrap this up, if you had somebody who was deaf, hard of hearing, who came up to you and said, I really want to do whatever it is, but I feel like I can't because I'm deaf, or I'm hard of hearing, or I'm deaf blind, what would you tell them?
One is, I'll tell them is that, first of all, I ask them if that's something that they really, really that word passion about, if that's something that they feel they need to do, that they have, that they want to do it. It's not need to do it, it's that they want to do it. And that they're real passionate about it. They want to do something, they want to make a difference in the world. Then yes, go for it. What others says, ignore them. Ignorance, people can, when they are negative, they're ignorant about hard of hearing and deaf. They don't understand, and just ignore them. Show them, yes, you can. Show yourself, more of anything, prove to yourself, yes, you can. Because in the end, it's about you and being satisfied with you. Ignore the negative outside forces. Only allow the positive in that keep you going. And if you struggle, and I know I first couple weeks in EMT, I kind of struggled, and my instructor set me down and says, how are you doing? And I tell her, hey, I'm having a struggle with this and this. And we kind of talk through it, and we kind of figure out what works better for me, because everybody got a different learning style. But they always said, open, we have open door. If you struggle, don't sit there and suffer. Come and talk to us. They have tutors available. So they offer things, and it has nothing to do with this. It is, they want to see everybody succeed, and they try to help because everyone's different. And so you might have to have a tutor. So what? I've seen people that don't have issues have tutors. I helped one of my classmates, EMT, who has no disability, and give him confidence. Yes, you can, because he goes around, I'm not smart enough. And the instructor was smiling because she was standing behind him. And I said, yes, you are smart enough. This is not an easy course. Don't struggle. Ask for help. You are smart enough. And she was smiling, and she's like, gives me this. And because it's not an easy job. We're going to see people at their worst. So my advice to the others is, yeah, you can. If you got that passion, you can push through it. That desire is going to drive you to succeed. And I've proven time and time again. I was asked to do the combat challenge, firefighter combat challenge this year, but I wasn't ready physically because you got to get conditioned for it, because that's very hard. I did it last summer. They praised for 2 reasons. I was competing against professional firefighters. That's all they do for career. We were the only 3 volunteers that competed in it last year, my husband and I. There was, I think, me and 1 or 2 other females out of all on the roster competing. So here you got a female even. And then they found out I was hard of hearing because they seen my service dog with me, which I didn't have a problem finding who's going to hold her. There was more of a fight who's going to hold her. And so they found out I was even hard of hearing on top of it. They were like, you're awesome. These are career firefighters that have no hearing issue. And they're like, you're totally awesome. So when you do things, you're going to make an impact on those that don't have a disability. I in contact with the fire chief down in Irving, Texas. And he's always like, I'm watching your post. You're awesome. Keep it up. You're positive. You're motivated. I got professional bodybuilders or my friends, and they're like, you're an amazing person with that positive attitude. And then my personal trainer told them my hearing loss and all my struggles, and they're even more like, wow. And they said, keep it up. So yeah, you can. Thank you. And so you can. So if you have that passion, you can do anything.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. And wow, thank you so much for sharing your story, because I know that the words that you shared today are going to ripple out there, and they may inspire or motivate someone who thinks they can't, and now they can. So thank you for that, Melinda.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.